You ready to go?
Yep.
Okay, the date is the 14th of August 2019. We are at Providence House in Battersea, Southwest 11, and part of the Black Heroes Wall of Fame Oral History Project. Freddie, good morning. I'm going to ask you to spell your name for us.
Right, good morning. First things first, I'm really happy and I'm really proud that I've actually been nominated to actually get involved in this project. I think it's something that, needs to be, heard in future years. A time capsule of an era which has gone by is really how we, as people of colour or black people or Africans or however we describe ourselves, used to do it back in the day. It used to be oral, and now we've got lost in this mire of wanting to be and do and see things that other people tell us which is good and which is bad, when we know we're still based on the village raising the child, and the village used to come as a community, and the community used to be what drove us forward. But unfortunately, due to the time and space that we have now, that's been lost. Even though we pretend we live in communities, we do not.
Thank you, Freddie. Would you just...
My name. FREDDIE MORRISON.
And where were you born, Freddie?
I was born in Jeffreys Road in Clapham, Southwest 4, in 1962.
What's the date when you were born?
13th of the 5th, 1962, the same day as Stevie Wonder.
Excellent, cool, great. So the interviews today is just really to talk a little bit about your earliest memories, your school days, best memories, life in the neighbourhood. We want you to sort of focus on some of the things that you remember, how you felt, what happened, and just give us some of the detail. I won't be asking too many questions. It's just really an opportunity for you to talk to us and tell us your story. Just trying to think if there's anything else. Just to confirm that you have read and signed the document, just so that we've got that on tape. Okay.
I've read and signed the contract with a disclaimer, so therefore that anything that I say and do here today has got my permission. So yeah, I'm quite happy with that.
So let's start with your earliest memories then, Freddie.
My earliest memories was from my life story is actually, finding out that I was born in an area which is really close to where I was raised. I was raised in a place called Battersea, but it was on the border of Wandsworth and Lambeth, because the border in Wandsworth and Lambeth sort of goes in and out. And I always thought I lived in Wandsworth. So I was born in 1962. I was born in Jeffreys Road, which is in Stockwell. But I lived in Battersea, and it was then it was a community on a road called Heath Road. And I lived in my grandmother's house initially, and she had 3 houses on that road when she came over from Jamaica in the early 1950s. And my grandmother was a very strong person, very, very strong person. She was really driven. Looking back with tinted glasses, I'd say she was a big softie, but she knew what she wanted to have, and she wanted to make sure her family was safe in all aspects, which is the mother in the village kind of thing. And my grandmother allowed my mum to live with her when I was conceived. As far as I'm aware, I'm a single child from my father with my mother. And on that road where we lived, it was a kind of community where there was a church on the road, which was, for me, it was really interesting because it was a black church on the road, and then there was a church down the road, which where most of the white people went. On that road, it was really cosmopolitan, so as a youth, you don't really recognise what's actually going on because you're just living, you're just out there, you're just doing what you're doing, being a child, being a boy, running up and down, and that's basically what I remember my earliest childhood memories. And one of the reasons why I have a problem with recall is because when I was 7, I got run over by a car, and I had a blood clot and a hemorrhage, and I was close to dying, that kind of thing. So my recall isn't 100%, even to this day, and I started to recognise that later on in life rather than at the time. Obviously it had an effect on me because I've got scars on my head where I had 80 stitches in my head to open up my head. It was Dr. David Owen, he was a neurosurgeon, and the memory that I remember is actually seeing a colour TV for the first time. It was in hospital, because at home we had a black and white one. I went to a school called Heathfoot School, primary school, and then when I left there, I went to Henry Fulton School, which is in Clapham, which is now Lambeth College. I have three brothers now. I have three brothers and two sisters. One of my brothers died. He died in prison. My other brother, he has issues. I have two sisters. One of my sisters works for British Airways. My other sister's converted to Islam. So that's the kind of family they're actually talking about. It's all aspects going right across the rainbow. What did I say? Growing up, we didn't really recognise there was a big significance difference in being black or white, and I think that's really important to understand, because once again you're growing up in a bubble where you're being a child, and as a child you should be able to just run and play and do what you want to do. Although I understand that a lot of people didn't have that when I was growing up, but I did. Like I said, I went to Henry Fulton School, and my grades coming out of school in 1978 was I got maths, English, commerce, geography, physics and French, all at GCSE level. The highest grade that I got was a 2, and that was in maths. And, for me, I always liked school. I enjoyed school. I thought school was really important. And one of the main things about school was that we had a significant teacher. Everybody remembers at least one teacher, and our teacher was Mr. Marshall. He was a black teacher, and he was very no nonsense in the style of Caribbean style teaching, And there'd be a few times where he'd pull me up and other people up and say, "As a black man, you just don't understand how bad you're going to get it if you don't fix up when you leave school. I'm telling you now, I'm going to come and call your mum. I'm going to tell your mum you're messing about too much. You've got a lot more potential than you've got, yada, 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 and all that." So, at the time, didn't stick in. But once you'd done the exams, because I went from school straight into work, exams didn't mean anything to me. I actually left school. The week after I left school, I actually started a job straight away. And it was called R.G. Shaw Shipping Limited, and that was at London Bridge. And I was there as a messenger. And so that's where my kind of career started off in being employed. And it was, all I wanted to do was do business studies. All I wanted to do was work in an office. That's all I wanted to do from school. I just want to work in an office. I want to be one of them people who work in the office, work at West End. I want to be one of them people. And what you didn't know is that you started off as a T-boy, the run-around boy, the messenger. You do all the odd jobs and everything. But the advantage of that was that you could leave the office and you'd have like an hour and a half window to go and deliver a letter and come back. So I was actually out of it. So I wasn't actually initially in the work as in a worker. You'd type a letter now and again, and that'd be about it. And then the kind of things you expect to do as like a trainee or an apprentice today. And at the end of my probation period, after a year, they sat me down and said, "We think you've done really well. You turn up, you're done, you're smart, blah, 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 blah. We're going to offer you a full-time contract." And I went, "I don't want it." They said, "Why?" I went, "I see people in here, sitting in here, and very rarely see anybody smiling. All people are doing at their desk typing, and there's this pressure." And I'm thinking, "Can you send me out today, please? I need to get out of here. I need to go and deliver a letter. Anything to not be in the office." So from then I knew that my kind of spirit wasn't although all through schooling, but I knew that wasn't me. So I'd done that, and I left there, but I left. The old saying is, never leaves a job until you got a job. So I actually had a job to go to, and it was called the Colour Centre, which was in Regent Street. And they also had an annex building down by Fulham Broadway, West Kensington, down there. So I moved from that to there. So it's two completely different jobs, but it was once again doing messenger stuff to start off with, and I enjoyed photography. And the reason why I enjoyed photography is because I went to a youth club in Balham. It's called the Balham Youth Centre at Balham Boys School, and I did photography there with a lady called Mary Dickinson, So my foundation in starting into things like youth work was actually based from there. I really enjoyed the fact that we had somewhere to go as young people. We messed about, we had interactions with the police to the extent where, the police back then, and I can say back then, used to walk up and down your road or in and around your area, and they used to say things like, "Don't worry, Morrison, don't worry, we'll get you one day, don't worry, you're going to do something wrong." And then, the police officers say, "I'm saying that because you will do something wrong, because you're a teenager, yeah? Just don't make it be too bad, and hope it's me that's arresting you." That's the kind of thing, because, neighbourhood policemen and all that stuff. So the youth club, by that time I'm 14, 15, 16, going to youth club regularly, going to dances at places like Merton Hall, going to discos, although not being old enough to go there, but still going and getting in, because I've always been tall, dark and handsome, so I thought I just had that in, yeah. I'm trying to see where I'm going now. So
you're a teenager.
I'm a teenager. I'm at Henry Thornton School, which I've spoken about, and while I was at school, I was part of a football team called Sturnhold United, which was set up in Balham, just at the Tooting Triangle. And the relevance of that, Sturnhold United at Tooting Triangle, is the fact that they built a youth facility there after the fact that the people who run our football club were saying for years we need to put something like that on the common from there. But at the same time, you couldn't play football for a team outside of school and play for the school football team, so it caused a lot of friction in the school. I wasn't that good a player, but they wanted me to play in the school football team. And I said, no, I'm playing for Sturnhold United because they're just round the corner from me, etc. I was part of the football team, the cricket team, the rugby team, so I was into the sport. And I like long distance running because that's what they made us do in the winter. From there, at school, I'd say I was a popular person, but I wouldn't say I was one of the ringleaders or anything like that. And I definitely wasn't one of the bad boys at school, because I knew that if I got home, I'm going to get licks from my mum and embarrass my mum. And even at that young age, it was like, you can't do that. You can't do that. From there.
Was there anybody at school that inspired you?
There was quite a few people at school who inspired me. My cousins went to the same school as me, and they were part of the Cool Notes band, the band Cool Notes. His real name is George Bernard Shaw, and that's his actual name, yeah, but he's known as Roddy. He was the drummer. Then you got Derek Shaw, he was the lead guitarist. And they used to be with Junior Giscombe, who was part of the school as well. And so it's kind of like, when they're seeing them on stage and all that, they was kind of like people I looked up to. Like I said, the main person was Mr. Marshall, and at the time the headmaster was called Mr. Humphreys. And the reason why he was important, because, there were the days when you used to get caned, and I got caned a few times. And one of the times where I didn't get caned, when I should have got caned, is because I pronounced the word Westminster correctly. Because everybody used to say Westminster. And he said, say that again. I said, Westminster. He said, you actually said it right. You can go. And after that, we had a different kind of relationship. It's just really strange, really little thing like that. But yeah, they were hard teachers back then. And you know what? I still think it was good for me. Obviously, the sports teacher, although I had a fight with the sports teacher, well, I pretended I had a fight with the sports teacher. The sports teacher twisted me up, but it was me that went for him first, that kind of thing. And that's just the transition, trying to be a man in an all-boys school. No one ain't talking to you how you're talking to, but like I said, it's all coming out now, so I'm trying to think what else. In trouble with the law, yeah, I got in trouble with the law quite a bit as well.
Can I just get you, just because you started talking about working at the Colour Centre?
Yes.
And you was going to give us a bit more of your, because you moved from the Messenger at London Bridge, and you realised that you didn't like that in office environment. Then you found yourself at the Colour Centre, and you was interested in photography. And then what you've done, you leapt into the youth centre.
Yeah.
But can you just come back to your experience
in the Colour Centre? Okay. Let me see, hold on. What I've got on there. Right, Colour Centre. Right, the Colour Centre was it was on Oxford Street, Oxford Circus. So I got my wish to work in Oxford Street, Oxford Circus, and it was in a place called Roxburgh House, and it was on the first floor. They had a reception area and the place where people could bring their SEPA negatives. Their negatives, and I think they're called SEPA negatives as well, which was a film which was like the dynamic film of the day. And you had people like Dave Lee Travis, you had what's his name, the famous, loads of famous photographers used to bring all their films there to be developed and their prints to be done on SEPA prints. And it just gave me an insight into something that I liked, so I started to do, like, take more pictures. I started going down to West Kensington where they had done the developing and things like that, and just had a keen interest in that. But this was a time where the film industry started to decline, so I left there after a few years, and I think I'm trying to check what I did after that.
So you stayed there for a couple of years?
At least 3-4 years. And the significant thing about that, I was the only black person there, but the significant thing about that was, at the time, I was going out clubs a lot, and I never really took to pop music in that context. It'd be on top of the pops and all that. I never really took to it until one of the workers there took me to see Ian Dury and the Blockheads, and then my whole thing about Ian Dury and all that just completely changed because the music that they actually played went from folk to rock to reggae to blue beat, and then into the normal pop again. So he was just sitting there thinking, "Wow, this is amazing! I've never even heard this kind of music." As in never listened to an album by anybody unless it was what my mum had on, like, the Gladys's and the James Brown, the old Aretha's and things like that. Going through the ages, all the Philadelphia International and all them kind of records. When I left the Colour Centre, I think that might have been. I worked in a place called the University Sports, which is on Ballymire Road, and that was a specific shop where they supplied all the universities up and down the country with sports equipment at a cheap price. So we'd go to UMIS, we'd go to Newcastle, we'd go to Liverpool, all the way back down Leeds, all the way down to Exeter. During the course of, it was mainly at the end of term up until, say, October, because the end of term the parents are given money, and the start of term you get your grant or whatever, and they'd get like a pair of trainers in the shop and be like 50 quid, and they'd sell it for 30 quid because of the college and uni. Excuse me. So I worked there for a little while in between. That was kind of a back-ender job from there, and then from there I went to work in Arden and Obbs, Clapham Junction. And I went to work in Arden and Obbs, Clapham Junction. I couldn't find any work for some reason. I'm trying to work out if this is the right order. But I worked at Arden and Obbs, and I started off working in the carpet department, and then I went into the toy department. So that might have been after Colour Centre. And I worked there for a few years. And then I went to Adidas. After Adidas, it was about 1985, where I went to work at as a volunteer to start off with at a place called the Church of St Stephen's on Battersea Park Road, and I went to work as a Manpower Services Commission. Right. Back then, it was like the, what do you call it now? Youth Employment Scheme type thing. So it's called the MSC, Manpower Services Commission, to work with young people with disabilities from there. And that's where I found my real vocation. One of the things about me that I've recognised about me is I'm a real people person. I get really deep on certain things, and I've been like that all my life. And when I was working with these young people that had cerebral palsy, mild and severe learning difficulties, it kind of, the whole perspective of life kind of changed from there. For me, it just thought, wow, there's us doing what we're doing, and these people are living like this, and they're trying to live their best lives, and we're moaning about this and moaning about that, and they've got real struggles every day to actually live through. And it kind of resonated with me, and so I thought, you know what, I think I might like this. I might want to do this kind of work. So it was, because it was Manpower Services Commission, it's only like for 6 months or 9 months from there, and then you either get a job or you don't get a job. But in between that, I was offered a job at a place called Catherine Lowe Settlement. And the Catherine Lowe Settlement's in Battersea High Street, and they had a one night a week where they had young people with disabilities there, and the rest of the week was a normal youth club for all young people. So because I was working with the Manpower Services, I used to go over there of an evening. The one evening a week I used to go down there sometimes when the people with disabilities were there. So when the people saw me there, they offered me a job as a youth worker. I think started as a part-time youth worker, and that must have been...
About how old was you about?
I was 87, so I'll be 25 then. I'll be 25 then. So and that was for a year. That was for a year. No, it's a year and a half. Hold on. I'll print that out. Right, yeah. Okay. So I worked at Catherine Lowe from May 87 to May 88, yeah, as a full-time youth worker. And that was covering a leave of absence 1 year. So I've gone from a part-time youth worker to a full-time youth worker for a year, and then back to a part-time youth worker, subsequently. And the thing with going from full-time to part-time is, as a full-time worker, you get to understand the runnings of the business and, how to manage people. And to this day, the hardest thing is to manage people. The job is the job. You've got the parameters of the job. It's managing the people to understand what their roles are from there. So I learnt that. And then going from full-time to part-time, I couldn't really deal with the fact that I'm now a part-time worker again, because the responsibility is all that's gone. People look at you different when you're not a full-time worker. It doesn't matter how you look at it, from there. So at that time, it was like, wow. So then I left there, and I worked at a place called because I was employed by Wandsworth Council then, before it was the Manpower Services Commission. So with Wandsworth Council, they said that there's opportunities you can go and work other places. And next door around the corner from the Catherine Lowe Centre, there was a place called the Battersea Central Mission. And in that building, there was a project called the Battersea Basement Studios. And that was a time of IT work. It was intermittent treatment in the 80s, where young people who were getting in trouble, rather than going to prison and all that, you try and engage them through. At that time, the new technology was the music, the photography, or the media thing was starting to build up. So they got the funding to set up that project. So they'd have proper video courses, filming, they'd have proper music courses, they'd have, what's it called? Where you would learn how to read and write music as well, but they'd do it via computer. So I worked there as I was working as a computer worker, teaching them computing, basic level, computer language and information technology classes through there. And that was really interesting because it was tied into the youth offending team. So they get young people who are in the youth offending team, they'd get referred to this intermittent treatment project, and I'd be there. So you'd have the bad boys and a couple of... Back then, you'd probably have 1-2 girls a year, let alone bad girls in the whole project, because the thing was, if you're a girl, you're naughty, you go to jail. You go to jail. Right? Yeah, back then it was like, off the rails girl, no, girls must be like this. So then you get very little chances, because the girl could do something and they'll get harsher punishment than the boy would do, back then in the 80s. from my experience, because we only must have had 2 girls in like a year.
I'm interested to know, was there any specific memories or people that you remember that made an impact on you? Because you talked a lot about the youth and the people you worked with. Was there anybody in particular
in my journey up until that time, the Catherine Lowe settlement was the guy his name was Colin. Can't remember his surname. Robert will remember his surname, but Catherine Lowe settlement was there's 3 people. There's Pauline Bennett, Jill Jones, and Colin. Pauline Bennett was a youth worker with people with disabilities. Jill Jones was a centre manager, and Colin was a bloke who run the youth service, the youth work part of it. So them 3 people had an impact. But before that, the person who employed me was a lady called Kathy Johnson, and we had a kind of a love-hate relationship, because she knew that I could do what I was saying, what I could deliver, but I'd do it as a maverick. Rather than follow the rules, I'd do it. I'd go around the back way to try and get it done from there. So I'd get in I'd have a lot of talk saying, "No, Fred, you can't actually do that." So no, I'm telling you, I'm doing this because it works. You're doing it from paper. I'm doing this from feeling. And if you do it from script, you miss the touchy feely part. So it's all about the heart. When you're working with anybody anyway, it's all about the heart if you've got a relationship with them, especially young people, because you know the transition they're going through adolescence, whether it be starting at 10, whether it be starting at 18. There's still a period in their lives when they've got some kind of, we need to steady the ship for them from there. So that would have been there. Kathy Johnson had a big influence on me because she was the head of the youth service. Another man who was a big influence on me was a guy called Sean Dunkley. And he was the person who was instrumental in setting up and setting up the Battersea Basement project, and was instrumental in setting up the youth offending team as a multi-agency project from there. I'm going to rewind the clock, and I'm going to go back to when you think about the person or people who have most influence on you. First and foremost, I have to say my mum, because everybody says their mum, but not everybody means it. And I'm saying my mum because my mum had a tough life, because she was the youngest of, I think, 7 children. And the youngest always gets treated better than everybody else. We all know that. You may want to admit it or not, but the youngest, if you've got more than 2 children, the youngest one is always your favourite. The firstborn is your most important. The youngest one, when the younger ones come, they're the most important. Yeah, it doesn't matter. You can have 10 children. It's the first and the last. The people in the middle, you want to give them everything the same, but it doesn't happen because you can't spread that love like that. And that's just from me looking at families and experience from there. And I saw that the same in mine. I was the firstborn, so therefore, but I was only firstborn for like a year. So the detachment. Yeah, the detachment started from a young age, and I'm just looking at it now, speaking to you, and trying to be honest about it, and I'm thinking about it now because my mum passed a couple of years ago. It's like, wow, and I had my mum's back from day one. And so, like I said, seeing my mum getting up and going to work, my mum being in different relationships, having different children, but all that didn't resonate until I was about 11, 12. By then I had a sister, a brother, a sister, and a brother. And then when I was 74, when I was 12, I had another brother. And then when I was 15, I had another sister. So there's a big gap from there. So by that time, I'd already been established as what I was going to do, school, etc., etc. So there's that. And so I would do anything for my mum then, and from then on, I'd do anything for my mum because I saw how she used to work and graft and try to grind and get things done. There'd be food on the table. A lot of help and support was from her mum, and the relationship between grandchild and grandparent is a strong one, because you get to skip past your mum because you knew that your grandparent would be there to give you the treats and give you the things that your mum couldn't do if your mum was focusing on the other children, etc., etc. And also because of the fact that, you know, my mum was by my side when I got run over. And that's why, you know, I had a really strong bond with my mum. And then when you read books like the bond between a son and a mother, you know, books that are written in America usually, you know, and you kind of see that what happens from the beginning goes through to the end. And at the end, when Mum passed, I was in the house. I was the one given the responsibility to be around Mum when she passed. And it was the funny thing was, it wasn't a sad moment for me because my mum died of cancer, and it wasn't a sad moment. It was a relief at that time, and then the after effects of the fact that your mum's passed is what happens. And you know, my friends are saying, "How come you didn't cry when your mum died?" I went, "Because I knew she was going to die. Everybody dies." She used to say to me, "Everybody dies. Don't bother spend no £20,000 on no funeral for me, you know, because I ain't leaving you no £20,000 debt. You know, I got a simple funeral. You know, you make sure you know, I've always loved you and I've always loved your brothers and sisters and all that kind of thing. You know, the stuff that people talk about when they know they're going to pass from there." So yeah, my biggest influence in my life is my mum. I didn't know my dad. I had an opportunity to meet my dad and I turned it down because I was old then. And my friend said, "You're going to regret it," and I don't regret it, because as far as I'm concerned, there's a lot of people that go around and say that your mum is your dad. Yeah, you can't have your dad as your mum because your dad didn't born you, but your mum can be your dad from there. Yeah, so that's how I lived with my mum in my mind at the time when my mum was here, and even that now my mum's passed. And when you think about people who've influenced you along the way, you obviously go to teachers, then you go to maybe uncles and aunties and things like that. So we've got the family structure around, you know, being protected by the family structure. And then you go to the people who had influence on your life. So if I say for the youth club, it'd be a lady called Jill de Cruz. She ran the Balham Youth Centre. An influence with regards to people who worked in the centre, Jimmy Asher. He was a Rasta man that worked in the centre. You had, like I said, Mary Dickinson, who done photography. Kept the interest in me in photography there. And we had the sport, the table tennis, all that. But they're the main three people inside the youth centre, I'd say now. Moving on from there, 16, 17s, it'd be my friend's parents. One of my friends is a Muslim, and his mum and family really took to me. And so even up to this day now, Eid on Sunday, I go to their house at Eid every year, you know. And I just look at their family structure, and they got, as an Asian family, with 1972, in the army and all that stuff. As an Asian family, they've kept their community spirit, you know, which is due to the matriarchal system that they have in. And the only comparison I can give you for like a black family or an African family is you get that with the church. Whether it's a close-knit community or not, you get that community feeling, and where you can all go out together, you can all on coach trips, all that kind of thing. And that's the kind of similarity that I have with the family there. My friends' parents had a big impact on me, because out of all, I was the only one who didn't have a dad. Of all my friends, I was the only one who didn't have a dad. And so the dynamics I'd see in the Caribbean families and the English families, and you know the how they raised their family and how they saw me. You know, originally it's like it's the bad boy. He's going to get, and then when they actually found out who I was, it's like, yeah, this is a good guy. This is the guy you need to be going. This is the guy who's sensible, even though he got in trouble. But this is the one who's sensible from their perspective. It's really important for your friends' family, your friends' parents to like you. It's really important, because if your friends' parents don't like you, you can't have that person as a friend, because they will ease you out of that, or their child will rebel against them. And I use that in my work today. If you can't bring your friend to your house, that's not your friend. That's your mate. And you have to understand the difference between a friend and a mate. And at 15, you might have 20 friends in school. You don't know who your friends are until you're 18 when you've left school. And if you draw them with you, then they're your friends. Otherwise, they're your mates. So that's the kind of things that I use in today. So there's that. Moving on, round about, then there's Steve Walsh, who was a DJ. Yeah, Steve Walsh, I used to be his apprentice. And he brought me into the world of music and DJing. He had a big influence on me, just seeing how important people thought a DJ was, and that kind of lifestyle, that lavish lifestyle. Not like today. This is back in the 80s when you didn't have the instant, you had to go out and work and graft, you had to carry the records and all that. And he kind of gave me my break, because one day he wasn't feeling well and he just phoned me and said, listen, you need to come to my house, you need to get my records, and you need to go and play in this club. It's like, what, me? Yeah, you need to do it, because otherwise we might lose the contract, blah, 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 blah. I said, all right, no problem. So I went down there, and all I'd done was just put the needle on the record. That's what I'd done. I didn't do no talking or nothing, just put the needle on it. And I thought, I'm getting paid for this. I like this. So that's another string. Excuse me. So I was doing the youth work and doing the DJing on the side as well. So that was back in the 80s, early 80s. From there, so he's a very big influence on me.
So did you have like a DJ name?
Fat Freddie M.
Okay.
That's me, Fat Freddie M. That's my DJ name. From there, and I'm going to stick to the people that influenced me first before we get to that part. So there's Steve Walsh. Another influence for me, really big influence, is Jimmy Rogers. Was Jimmy Rogers, because he's now passed, as is Steve. Jimmy Rogers from Brixton Top Cats organisation. And he was like a kind of a sage, a father figure, knowledgeable man, deep into his black history, in music, his sport. You know, it was all the things that you want for someone to kind of draw off of. And he'd say, you know, we'd exchange things, and you know, he'd say, well, you know, I can't tell you what to do, but I think you should look at this angle of it or that angle of it and make your choice. But you do what you want to do. But what you got to do is remember, you got to live what your choice is. And if it's the wrong choice, accept that it's the wrong choice and look for help. Never be afraid to say, I'm struggling. Because if you don't say that, everybody thinks everything's great for you. And when everybody thinks everything's great for you, they won't come to you. And when you come to them too late, you'd be like, you should have told me, don't tell me at 11:59, tell me at 11:20. You know, so I've got time to work out what we're going to do from there. So that, loads of things like that. Brixton Basketball Club is probably the only original all-black club still running from the 1980s, 81. From there. And he had a great influence on me. Another person who had a great influence on me is Ralph Daly, and he used to be part of the Nation of Islam, and he ran and owned the Brixton, what's it called now? The Fridge Brixton. He owned the Fridge Bar, and we'd have many a conversation about life and how life should be from a perspective of someone who used to be in the Nation of Islam, and me just I'm not in the label of religion. I'm in the God's in me because I'm alive. I don't need to be a Hindu, a Sikh, a Muslim, a Christian. I don't need to be that. I know that God is in me, so therefore I'm alive from there. So that's him. So I'd say they're the main people. I'm trying to think of anybody after Ralph, because I'll be grown by then. And
what about your relationships with your brothers and sisters?
Relationship with my brothers and sisters. I'd say that my relationship with my brothers and sisters, my sister Sharon, now we have a fantastic relationship, but when we were younger we were separated. We weren't brought up by the same mum. My brother Michael, we've got a great relationship. We've had a good long-standing relationship from as far as I can remember. My brother Wayne, who died in prison, we had a great relationship, but he was the one who always kept getting in trouble, and which ended up in passing away in prison. My other sister Anissa, who's a Muslim, and I have to make that significant because it's showing the spectrum of people who actually in the household. I've got a great relationship with her. It's a brother, and she's the youngest, so she's my youngest sibling. We've got a great relationship. She's very, very knowledgeable. She's passionate about what she does and when she does it. She's into health. She's into natural. She's into organic. She's that kind of what we call like a hippie, but she's not a hippie. Far from it. But back in the day, we'd say there's a hippie person from there. And my younger brother, we've got a great relationship, but he's been going through some health issues, especially now mum's gone from there. So, and it's when you're the eldest, it's really difficult to try and hold everything together, and you need to breathe. And when you need to breathe, you need to step away from things and let people find themselves. And at times it's difficult because when you've always been the alpha, it's difficult to try and come away and try to be you without affecting how your relationships are with the rest of your siblings. I think that's the best way I can put that. But I think we've got I think we've always had a great relationship growing up. But as you become adults, you become responsible for yourselves, and that's what we forget. Once you become an adult, you're responsible for you. Therefore, try and live your life without having to depend on other people, because you set up yourself in other things and relationships from there. So that was the family. The last person I said was Jimmy Rogers that influenced me. So from there, and then when I went to another person's been a great help. There's a person called Anthony Doherty, and we went to Averill College together in 1987. No, that's not like that. Doherty. Yeah, Anthony Doherty, and we're best friends to this day. To this day, we're best friends, and because I didn't grow up with him, it's a different relationship. Because I got friends who are my best friends because I grew up with them from 12, and they're still my best friends now. But to have an influence in the way that he's had an influence on my life, he's one of my best friends. So I've just added him to the collection, and the reason being is that he's Nigerian, which is really important, and the Nigerian way is education all the way. It's about being educated, and he is very educated, and he has helped me instrumentally in everything I try to do. I always use him as a guide, or we always bounce off each other, and I just got a lot of love for him, a lot of love for him. As with all my friends, I have a lot of love for, but he's up there, and I think it's worth mentioning him from there. Where are we going? Relationships. What was it, in 1990, end of 1991, 92, I met and fell in love with my wife, Sue Morrison. It's New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, 1991 into 1992, and 2 years later we got married. Got married in Jamaica. 2 years after that, had the first child, Savannah, 1996. 3 years after that, Savannah with a H, please. 3 years after that, we had a son, Niall. 1999, yep, Niall. 2004, we got divorced. Saddest day of my life. Saddest day of my life.
Tell us a bit about Sue.
Sue, oh boy. Sue was a complete opposite to me, as in opposites attract kind of thing. She's headstrong. She's from, I'd say she's from a middle class black family. They'd probably deny it, but it's definitely a middle class black family. And I just thought, wow, how lucky am I? And I'll say this, up until then, I had one other girlfriend that I thought I was in love with. No, I was in love with, because you get that feeling, and that didn't work out. But then when Sue came along, it was like, wow, how lucky am I, kind of feeling. And she just ticked all the boxes. She was smart, she was really pretty. In my eyes, she was really pretty. She's from a good family, and I just thought, this is the person that I want to have children with. I want to be with this woman from there. And I just said, I said, I can't say that I don't love you, because I know I do, and all this business, but I want someone for life, kind of thing. I want someone for life. And unfortunately, a series of events led to us having disagreements. I wanted what she couldn't give me. She didn't want what I give her. Scenario without actually saying what's going on, but it was my fault. I thought I was doing the right thing, but it wasn't the right thing at the time, and it wasn't anything to do with an outside relationship. This is a relationship between us, and I just didn't hear. And sometimes when you don't hear, you must feel. And 15 years later, still feeling it. But having said that, the thing that we did when we got divorced, and I think it's really important for people to hear this part, is that we sat down and we said, this isn't about us, this is about the children. So let's not go to court, let's not do all that lawyer stuff and spend out thousands of pounds to get divorced. Let's just work it out between each other. And that's what we did. We worked out between each other. We must have spent £400 or £500, if that, to get divorced. We agreed that we would try not to see anybody in the first few years because of the children from there. And since then, since we've been divorced, even since the day we got divorced, within a year, we were still in contact. We shared the children. When we split up, we sorted the house out. She got a new place. I stayed where I was and fixed up where I was. So 2 days a week, or every other weekend, the kids would come over. I'd take the kids to school in the morning, because then I was DJing a lot. So I'd take the kids to school in the morning. Then they'd go back to their mum. So there's that kind of relationship there. And at the school, I became a part of the PTA. And after becoming part of the PTA, then I became part of the governing body. Then I became vice chair of governors at the school. So all through their school life, I was there with them. And she understood that part of how our relationship was. I don't think, and with my hand on my heart, don't think we've had more than maybe a dozen heated discussions since we've been divorced, based on misunderstanding, blah, 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 like a married couple kind of thing. And I think that's really important, because people see us now and they still think that we're married. which isn't a good thing. It's not a good thing because you can't move on to the perception what people have from there. So yeah, I'm really, really glad I met her. Our children are just, and everybody says this about their children. Our children are magnificent children, not good children, magnificent children. They're grounded, they're well mannered, they understand the meaning of life. We taught them about money. My children didn't get pocket money from me. My children didn't get pocket money. They got what they wanted if they deserved it. And unfortunately for me, financially, they always deserved it. But at Christmas, and one of the things about why me and Sue split up was I was going through the stage where I didn't, and I never had before, enjoyed Christmas. Christmas was like the time of the year where I'd be down, and I don't like Christmas. I don't need to buy presents. No one needs to tell me when to buy a present for someone. I will do it when I want to do it. I won't buy them Christmas presents. What I'll do is I'll give them money after Christmas so they can buy twice as much. And that, from a family, from her point of view, the family, they always done the Christmas thing. They always brought everybody together. They always sat down and had the meal together, which we did, but it wasn't, I didn't recognise it at the time. That's what we were doing. So from a different perspective, it's like I was saying, I don't care about what you and your family do. This is my stance. I ain't doing Christmas when I should have embraced what was going on. But that is hindsight. So yeah, so with my children, I didn't give them pocket money. About Christmas and their birthdays, I say, right, there's 365 days in a year. You've been good for the whole year. There's £365. You got £1 a day, and that's what they got. So they get like that, and then the birthdays they'd get. How old are you now? Okay, we'll give you a touch there. That was it. From there, so my kids didn't want for anything from me or their mum. So they learnt about the importance and the value of money. From there, they're both working. My daughter went to Winchester University. She got 2-1 in primary school teaching, and she's now, at the moment, and this is important about spreading your wings and going. At the moment, she's working for Royal Caribbean Cruises as the youth ambassador, and her first tour was Singapore, Malaysia, and wherever the other island is down there, and Thailand. And then this year she's doing the Bahamas, Coco Bay, on the private island with Prinav, and with Royal Caribbean, and she wants to do one more year, which is Europe. So then she's done the East, the States and Europe, and then she wants to do her second year, the follow-up year to become a primary school teacher. And she asked at the start, what do you think? I went, it's your life, it's not my life. Do what you need to do now, because once you start work, you're on the treadmill. Yeah? But you must qualify. You can't do the uni and then not do the final year and not get the proper, then you can go and work anywhere in the world. And that's what you got to remember. So that's what she's doing. My son Niall, I told him he weren't going to uni. I said, you're not going to uni. I said, you're going to go and get a job. Because all the people I know now who went to uni 3 years ago have still got no work. So you need to learn how to work first and earn your money. And if you're good enough, when you're older, you can go and do uni in the evening. You'll be able to do it by email now, by the time you're older. So he's now a junior project manager for a company called Artilia, which is a subsidiary of Shell. But it was a process he had to go through from 50 people to 20, 20 to 10, 10 to 4, 4 to 2, 2 to 1, and he got it. So that's the learning process that he had. He had the curve of learning how to be focused on where you want to get your goal. And he's got that. And he's really smart, really intelligent. He's 6'6". And I'm going to say this, so you may not use it, but he's 6'6". He's slim, he's model type. And he went for a job. Before he got this job, he went for a job because I said, you got to work. You got to learn how to earn money. Just get a job. So he got a job at the House of Fraser. So he went for the job at Fraser, said, yeah, you got the job. And then as he was going out, the person who run the Ralph Lauren store went, no, he can't work there. He has to work for us. That boy has to work for us. So his first job in there was working for Ralph Lauren from there. So that.
Why did you have a different approach for your daughter and to your son? Because obviously you want her to do well and you want her to finish uni, but you told your son.
Right.
Yeah.
You know your children, yeah? My daughter's always been a people person. And a people person needs to train in something to you to be a people person. and she wanted to be a primary school teacher. She helped out at the after school club and things like that. But she's always been a person who's been really warm, and you can see that, really warm to other people and individuals from there. So, you know, she said she wanted to go uni, and she said she wanted to do it. And once again, we sat down as a family, and I went, Mum and Dad said, do what you feels right for you. If it isn't the right thing, you will know, and then we'll look at another path. But it's difficult to say that, for me to accept that I've looked at her differently than my son, because they're my children. I know, even though I may have been wrong, but I know my children, and I knew that was what she wanted to do from 14, and she looked up to her dad, just working with young people, although doing DJ and all that, still working with young people, still helping, seeing me that touchy feely guy. My son's like his mum, yeah, really intelligent, yeah, really calm, and like I said, you can go to uni, but learn how to earn money first. You'll have a 3-year advantage than anybody from your school, yeah, who's gone to uni. So at the end of the 3 years, you'll be earning money, knowing how to earn money, yeah, and you'll learn on the job. And what happened after the first year? You usually go up one stage after the first year. He went up 2 stages, and they gave him a day release. So, the path is there for him from there. But, some people say you're fortunate. No. Everything's preordained. If you invest in your children in the right way, and the fact that they've got a mum and dad who don't live together and still see us together, we go around for dinner, cook for each other and all that business sometimes. People say, it's an attachment. No, my children there. There's a mother and my child. What am I going to do? I ain't going to sit there and watch like other people, I hate her. How can you? I don't care what you do, you can't hate the mother of your children, because if you show the hate to your mum, the children feel it. And that's it. And growing up, that's what I learned being, having stepbrothers and stepfathers and all that business. You see that, and there was a significant time when I was growing up when we lived in the Lishall Road, when my grandmother bought 3 houses in a row. My grandmother used to work for the Beverley Sisters. My grandma was the nanny for the Beverley Sisters from there. So she bought 3 houses in a row on that street and gave one to my mum. And growing up, she let the room out to a lady who had an abusive partner. At the time we didn't know. And then one day came home and this guy's beating this woman in where I'm living, and I'm thinking, my mum's screaming and shouting, saying, leave her alone, leave her alone, leave her alone. So that kind of had wow. And then I think he went to prison 2 years later for beating up somebody else from there. But, them kind of things kind of resonate in you as you're growing up.
This is in the 70s?
This is 80s.
80s.
It would be... It would have been... We moved... 1970s. It would have been about 1970 to 73 at the latest, because I think we moved in... When did we move to Balham? We moved to Balham in 19... We might have moved... I know I was in Balham in 1976, because that was the hottest summer of ever. So it must have been about 1974. So it would have been between 70 and 73 when that was happening. So I would have been 10, 11, 12.
Can I ask another thing? So did your mum come from Jamaica?
Mum come from Jamaica, yeah. She was the last one brought over by grandmother. By her mum, yeah.
And what's interesting, so in your friendship group that you grew up with, did many people have their grandmothers? Their grandparents would, because
definitely, because there was that kind of little collective. But my grandma died in 1986. My grandmother died in 1986. From there, so that was a big upheaval for the family, and that's when I recognised the importance of a matriarch, because the matriarch kept it together. And then, so that taught me about how people react to death and how people want and expect rather than wait for. And that's not just a kind of a black thing, or that's a human thing, where you think you have the right to have something because somebody's left it. where you haven't earned it, you haven't worked for it, but you want it because my mum done this and blah 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 blah. From there, when my mum passed, when I got married, my mum was living in the house that I live in now, and when I got married, I said to my mum, because she was struggling, what I'll do is I'll arrange to buy your house and I'll give you my house. No mortgage. So she went from a 4-bedroom to a 3-bedroom. 5-bedroom, 3-story house to a 2-story house with 3 bedrooms. And obviously in negotiating with my wife and everything, you know, she said, you sure you want to do this? Yeah, I want to do this because my mum's struggling. Brother wasn't working at the time. Other brother was in and out of a lot of prison, a lot of trouble. And mum was struggling. And so I said, it's going to be the easiest thing. It's the only way we're going to keep the house and the family, you know, from there. So we've done that, made the change and everything. And then when we got divorced, rather than sell the house, I got a couple of loans and I converted it. I kept one, sold one, that kind of thing. And that's why I can still live there now, because I live in Balham, and you can't live in Balham now.
So you still live in that same family house?
Still live in all those flats now.
From the free properties. So you've got
from the free property in Clapham, we moved to Balham.
Right.
But grandmother owned the free properties
in Clapham.
In Clapham,
right?
Yeah, yeah. So when Lambeth Council said we had to move, something to do with the place where we lived is kind of listed. It's kind of listed. It's an arch. It's a house with an arch on it, and they used to have horse and cart go through. And so when we sold that. When my grandmother sold that, she bought a house in Balham for my mum and her sister as a joint thing for them. That's a whole different bag. Don't go there. I'll tell you off mic that one. I'm telling you now. But yeah, so that was my children, and that's also my ex-wife Susan. Where I go from there is to DJing.
Yeah.
What do you think? No, you can guide me.
Just touch a little. I like the DJ. I'm interested in you as a youth worker. I'd like to hear it.
Okay, as a youth worker, so my history. I've got it here. Right. I went from if we stop from Battersea Basement Studios, which was the last thing we spoke about with me. I went from there to Tower Youth Club. And Tower Youth Club was on Blackshaw Road in Tooting, and it is a garage is underneath a block of flats from there, and it wasn't working really well. And they had a reshuffle in the service. That's when the funding started changing, and that must have been 1991. Yeah, 1991. So I think it was 1991 when the GLC stopped.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, 89 to 91 when the GLC stopped, so the councils then started to take on board all the youth work and all that. So they done a reshuffle, you had to reapply for your job, and they give you a choice of 3 places. So I said, I'll take the Tower. I live in Balham, it's not that far from where I live. So I took Tower Youth Club, and it was a voluntary organisation, but I was the worker that was working in there. Excuse me. And there's one thing about me, when it comes to working with young people, my thing has to work. It has. I ain't no time for people who ain't. It has to work. So I put my heart and soul into it. So within a year, the club was full and thriving. I'd knock on all the doors, all the old traditional stuff that people used to do, knock on people's doors saying, I'm this, I'm that. You'd bring the bad boys in, you'd argue with the bad boys, you'd ban the bad boys would slash your tyres of your car, you know, say it wasn't them that done it, you know, and all that stuff, you know. But it's always about, and because of the voluntary club, you can start with 8-year-olds, and it's always about me having the younger ones in there first. I didn't care about the older ones initially, because they would come, because there's nothing else there. And when they saw there was somebody they actually cared about what they was doing, then they'd come in numbers. So it was a successful youth club from that perspective. And that I was there till 93. Yeah, I was there till 93. So I met Sue, 92. 93. 92, 93, I was at we had to reapply for the job again, right? So I reapplied for the job again, and in 1992 I went to Alton Youth Club, which is on the Roehampton estate. And the Roehampton estate is the biggest estate in the country, apparently.
What's it called?
The Roehampton.
Roehampton.
Oh, yeah, as in R-O-E, yeah. Roehampton estate. And the club was called the Alton Youth Club. And the person that ran the youth club, another person that had a significant impact in my life, his name was is Bob Francis. And Bob Francis was the youth worker that kind of took me under his wing when I was at the Tower. He was the senior youth worker for the area. And Bob was one of these kind of, what's the guy's name? He does gardening, got the beard and all that, kind of a oafish type person, but he wasn't. Yeah, he was like he was like a joker, but not a joker. And he kind of took me under his wing, and he'd say, and Bob Francis and Lee Rogers, they were the people that done they'd done some kind of youth work course that I was told I had to go to kind of fine-tune my skills kind of thing, because I was still just a rugged, I'm doing it my way. So they sent me to this course, and they were the tutors on it, and Bob was already working for Wandsworth, and Lee was working at, I think might have been Haverhill at the time, and I got a lot of knowledge from him how to do things without getting into trouble, sailing to get just closer to the wind kind of things, without putting yourself at risk or the young people, but a great learning experience. And he took me to France. He said, someone's dropped out, you're coming. I said, why am I going to France? I can't speak French. He said, no, we're going to a Polish community in France. So I said, all right. So we went there, and I couldn't tell the name of the place now, but we went to this place, and obviously I was the only black person there. And the attention is like, and he's like, don't worry, when they get to know you, they're going to love you, because you've got that personality. Don't worry. He said, I know what you're feeling. I said, you can't be telling me you know what I'm feeling. These people look at me really weird. You know what I mean? That's kind of the first time when I actually thought, boy, I'm the only one in the village kind of thing. And, I think it was only there for 3 days, a long weekend. And then after the first day, we had a sit-down meal and all that. And even I don't eat red meat. I ain't ate red meat for since about 1976, 77, I ain't red meat. And that's another problem when you're married and so nothing with meat. And I went vegetarian as well. Oh God, everything, oh my gosh. So so we sat down and then afterwards we had they had a little they're showing us their dance, their Polish dancing, like their version of maypole dancing and all that. And they got out these little drinks. Little drinks out of the freezer. I said, yeah, just drink one of them. Within 20 minutes, I was all over the place. I was like, what are you giving me? Oh, it's our special vodka. What? It's neat, And so that was it. And from there, after that, everybody was like, oh, he's one of us, and all that. Really nice to meet you. You say Jamaica, we say Bob Marley. It's even, no matter what you say. Yeah? Yeah. So, you say Jamaica, we say Bob Marley kind of scenario. But just coming out of his own and doing that is another thing. So that's another person that had a lot of influence on my life. So he used to run the Alton Youth Club. Mm. And all of a sudden he wasn't running the youth club. Something happened and he wasn't running the youth club. So they had a change around and they asked me to go up there, and I'm like, I don't want to go Roehampton. That's the furthest part. That's the furthest club from my house. Yeah, and they said, no, we think you'd be good for it and all that. So I went up there, and I turned that club around, because when he left, there's a big period between him leaving and then employing someone. So the club went down. So I've gone up there. There's me with this big voice. You're doing it my way or no way. I know this works. Blah blah blah. Give me 6 months and this club will be jammed. And within 6 months the club was jammed. Same thing. Go there, knock on doors, tell people there's someone running the youth club, it's me. If you want to go and send your children, you've got family coming in for the summer, whatever, they've got children, I'm here, blah, 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 from there. So that was, I know that was 92 because that's when I met Sue. And what happened that year was Kiss FM is now established as a station, and they were looking for someone for a year's cover, another year leave of absence. And so someone said to them, asked Freddie, he's always out and about, blah, 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 blah. Okay. So they came to my work, and I brought my friend who was Steve Walsh's manager, before Steve Walsh died. And he was now saying, I said, what should I do? He said, let me come with you, let me just listen to what they're saying, what they're offering you. So they said, right, it was Lorna Clark, she's now head of BBC Radio 2 Music, and Gordon McNamee, who owns My Soul Radio, used to own Kiss 100 at the time. And they came to me and they sat down and they said, listen, we really need someone to come and do the drive time show. And people are saying we should ask you, and we think you'd be a good fit, blah, 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 blah. So my major friend come agent saying, well, what are you going to offer him? Kind of thing. We can't really offer him much. We'll give him feels like £70 a day, whatever, and then you make what you make on top from the clubs and all that. So I'm sitting there going, I want to bite their hand off. What are you asking these questions for? I want to bite their hand off. So I said, I really should talk to Sue first, you know what I mean? From there, I should really talk to Sue to see how she feels about it, but I want to do it. So originally I said, okay, I think I want to do it. I'm trying to think. Sue just said, if that's what you want to do, I'll do it, kind of thing. As long as you pay the money, blah, blah, blah. As long as we can pay the rent and all that stuff, family stuff. So I said yes. So I went to Wandsworth. I went to Kathy Johnson, the same person I told you, one of the people I've got a lot of respect for, and I said, Kathy, man, this is like, it's only for a year. I need to do it. This is part of me. I need to do it. No, you can't do it. Pardon? No, we're not going to allow you to do it. I went, watch me. So I came in the next day, big team meeting. At the end of it, I came and I asked for a year leave of absence when other people have had it, and they've come back. I've asked for a year leave of absence and they've said no. Goodbye. I just walked out. They said, you can't walk out. I went, I can do what I like. You can do what you like. I'm gone. And that was it. I walked out on the service, went straight into Kiss 100. And from 92 till 99 I was at Kiss, and I'd done Saturday shows, Friday night shows, I'd done a couple of breakfast shows, done drive time, right across the spectrum, and it was fabulous, fantastic. I have to hold a minute. What time is it?
It was
Pause, yeah.
You walked out and you said...
Yes, that's it, right. So then I went to Kiss 100 and I was there for 7 years, done everything, it's really great. Alongside that I was doing, I was working for BBC Radio London. I'd done inserts into their black show, Black London show. I'd done things for, was it called Black Britain? Back in the day with Rihanna and Brenda Emanis.
Oh, the TV
program. Yeah, done stuff for them. Little inserts for them. I done a basketball program on BBC Radio 5 Live. First person who didn't actually play the sport to actually do a program about a sport, because I was the first one. They told me that you're the first person that didn't do the sport that's actually done a show about the sport. I was really proud of that. But basketball would never take off in the UK because they just won't let it take off. They'd rather invest in netball. So that was that. What else we got? After Kiss 100, I went to work for Hammersmith and Fulham, and I'd done a consultant job and researcher to establish funds for a youth club on the West Kent estate. So I'd done the outreach work for them there. And while I was doing that, people heard I'd left KISS from Wandsworth, and they asked me if I wanted to come back as a part-time worker with Kathy Johnson still the head from there, and they gave me the job. And then from that Kathy put me on a connections course, personal advisor, which is about employment, education and training. And I've done that course, and I got a full-time job as a connection person. And I didn't. What did I come back to? I came back. I can't remember what I came back to, but I know I'd done that course, and while I was doing that course, I must have been working at a club somewhere. I was a voluntary sector development worker for Balham and Tooting. I've done that course as well. And then from that, I went from Balham to Battersea, which is across the road from my primary school, to work as a voluntary sector development worker over there. Then I went from there to the youth offending team as a voluntary sector development worker for the Battersea the Borough Early Intervention team, working with the young people that are going to get before they got into trouble, doing triages with the police, etc. And then from there, I went to become the connections worker in Tooting, which I'm there that's from then till now, 2019, and in September our roles are changing again to early help practitioners as part of the Wandsworth Children's Services from there. So that's my history in that context. I've done a lot of work with the NBA, and when Shaquille O'Neal came over for the first time, I took Shaquille O'Neal to a nightclub, the Subterranea, because the group called the Gravediggers was on, and there was his friend, so we took him down there, and he went on stage and sang with them and all that, and then came off, and then he said, anytime I'm going to come to the States, you just call me, blah blah blah. You know, they always say that, and you think, yeah, right. But then I called, and then they said, yeah, come to my house. So me and my wife went to Shaquille O'Neal's house in the States, and the hour before we got to his house, he went to the Super Bowl, but his agent said, don't worry, you're here, we might as well show you around his house, because he's got the Super Bowl from there. So we went, saw his house and everything, had a great time. And when I was doing the stuff for the BBC, I'd go to the All-Star weekends, and every week he'd say, hey, how you doing, London? How's things? He said, you never wanted anything from me, because he said, do you want trainers? And I said, you can only wear one pair of trainers. And Jimmy Rogers told me that. He said, when people offer you things you already got, say to them, I don't need it, and watch their reaction. Because when you don't need something, people are shocked from there. And he sort of, and ever since then, and that made a bond. Like all these people saying, I want 100 of these. This guy's taken me out, looked after me, took me to a club, got me back, and I'll say, do you want anything? And he says no. And it's like, unheard of from there. From that, so that's that. Just a little side snippet. What was the other thing? Happy, sad. I told them sad moments. Living in Wandsworth. Living in Wandsworth has changed. I think we've talked about it. Living in Wandsworth has changed. I came to Wandsworth between 72 and 74. I came to Wandsworth, and like I said earlier, it's about the community. The demographics have changed in all the time. You know, you had and it's really interesting. You had the influx. You had I'll use the word influx. Yeah, the influx of the Asians in the early 70s. Then you had the late 70s. You had the other parts of Africa, where you had like the Eritreans, you had the Ghanaians, you had the Nigerians, all coming in, and then you had the 80s, and in the 80s you had the Europeans. You had the Russians first, then you had the Europeans in the late 80s into the 90s. And after that, as in now, you got the new influx of the Asians, as in the Indians and the Pakistanis, because there's a new generation of those. You've got the Turkish and you've got the Chinese. And the next step now, going forward into 2020, will be I forgot the Brazilians. Yeah? Going forward 2020, you have the new Americans coming.
New Americans?
Money Americans.
Okay.
Yeah, that's next. That's the next thing going. Money Americans.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the pound and the dollar, they get more for their money. They get more for their money. So you're going to get the new influx of the rich Americans. This is just Wandsworth I'm talking about, because you now got the American embassy in Wandsworth. Yeah, and Wandsworth's always been a conservative borough.
Quite right.
It's perfect for people of America. They got their little pocket already, and it's only going to expand out. Because you know, as it happens, you drop the pebble in the middle and the ripple comes. And the pebble in the middle in the city of London was the Arab money. Well, that's not coming anymore. The Russian money, that's not coming anymore. And you got the new powers, the Asians, the Brazilians, and the Chinese and the Russians, the BRIC companies, big BRIC countries. So the effects of that is, what's happening now is the austerity that's been going for 19 years that people ain't talking about is a direct result of what Giuliani done in America with New York, which is anybody who ain't working can't live in our town. But first we've got to get rid of the people that are there that ain't working already. So you put austerity in. And with austerity comes, always at the bottom of the barrel, is the people of African descent. So once you get rid of those, which is social housing, they have to go. And after the social housing goes, which is what's happened already, then you get rid of the public utilities, which is the police, the fire brigade, the public services, then that goes. So you have to have private, and only rich people can afford private. So therefore, the pebble's been dropped in 2000, 2001. The repercussions by 2021 is that a lot of people who can't afford to live in London won't live in London. The only problem is it's affected a lot of middle-class white people, because they can't afford to send their children to private school anymore. So therefore, quote-unquote, we're failed because we went to private school and our children can't go to private school. So it creates a vacuum. So you're going to have extremely rich and extremely poor. There you go.
And do you think that because by just hearing it, so you've been a youth worker across Wandsworth.
Yeah, I've been moved more than anybody else.
So across the whole of the borough, you've been a governor in schools, so you've kind of got really your insight into the kind of social kind of population of the borough must be kind of quite.
Yeah.
You're well read, you understand it. Yeah, and then as a DJ must mean that you kind of across different aspects of the kind of how the communities live in the borough. It sounds like you kind of got a good. And so it's interesting to see, just understand your view on that change, how with new regeneration, like the Winstanley estates being regenerated. So how do you see that affecting the communities, the kind of long living?
Right, let's deal with the word community to start with. Community is something which has been placed inside our brain. Yeah, it's something that's been invented. Yeah, if it ain't the village, it's nothing. The only community you've got is a village. Yeah, you can't have people from different faiths, different countries, different ways of life, all in the same place, understanding what a community means, because we all have our own interpretation of what community is. Now, if you're talking about the change in the Winstanley, that seed was planted years ago when they told everybody in that block next door that it had asbestos in. We all got to move. We've got to knock it down. And what they did, they went in there, they took out the asbestos, and they only let a few of them back, and then they sold the rest as right to buy. So that was the seed. Now, with the regeneration that's happening in the Winstanley estate now, it's the same as anywhere. Any estate that you see in London, yeah, it's tried and tested. Yeah, I don't have to do research on this. It's tried and tested. You have an estate of, let's say, for example, 20 blocks of flats. Yeah, you take one, you fix it up. Yeah? You fix it up, you take out 75% of the people that's in there and you put them elsewhere in the borough, yeah, for example. So you got 75% of new people coming in and they're buying, yeah? Them 75% people don't like the noise of the rest of the estate. So they complain to the police all the time. So the police are constantly coming into that estate and arresting the young people that live in there and the people that live in there, that's lived there for a certain amount of time, yeah? Because these people have paid for their property, so therefore they have more status than those who are living in social housing. Yeah? So you do that once there, then you build another one there, then you build another one there, then you build another one there, then you move it inside, then you move it inwards. And that's what happens on every estate. So the regentrification, yeah, they can regentrify the whole estate and put the people who lived in there before back in there. But no one don't make no money there. If you don't make no money, it don't make no sense. And that's Winstanley, Patmore, Doddington, Roehampton Estate now, they're building there like it's going out of fashion. And what will happen is, the ripple is, those who can't afford to stay there, which is a lot, those who are in rent arrears, which is a lot, those who have children who have problems with the law, which is a lot, and in social behaviour, will be asked to move, and they'll be offered one property in one place anywhere in the country, and if they refuse it, they're intentionally homeless, therefore we do not have to support you. There you go. And that's happening today. It's been happening for the last 10 years or more, and it's going to happen into the future until London becomes New York, London becomes Paris, where you go in, you dip and you come out. The commuter belt. Look what's happening to the commuter belt now. Outside the M25. Everybody's moving out there. But the people who live there, they're not moving in. They're moving out. So now you can't buy it on the coast or inside the coast because they were the people that were in the commuter belt before, saying we don't want to live next door to these people. Because they're getting the money to buy people who bought them for 25 grand and now selling their property for 600 grand and buying a property for 400 grand just outside London. There you go. My knowledge of black history from Black History's Hall of Fame is that I am black. Don't call me anything else. You can call me African. Doesn't mean nothing to me. I am black. Top and bottom line. I went to Ethiopia this year. I went to Lalibela. I prayed in all the churches. I'm not a religious man, let me tell you that now. I prayed in all the churches because that's where it took to me. And that is it. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed that.
Thank you very much.
I know that's about 17 hours. You're going to make it 20 minutes. I ain't got a problem with that. From there.
I think
there you go.